Thanks for joining us. I'm Julie Fannin. I'm one of the owners of Naturalist Journeys, and we're here tonight to learn about Portugal and why you should join us this spring. I was on this tour this spring, and it was pretty incredible. We spent time in three different locations in Portugal. The birds were great, the food was incredible, um, and everyone was really welcoming, and we just had a great time. So, without further ado, I give you João Jara. He is joining us at 1 in the morning in Portugal. So thank you for that. And off to you, João.
Thank you, Julie. Just to thanks for this invitation. It's a pleasure for me to speak about my country and specifically about birding in Portugal. But actually, as you are going to see, it's not all about birding. It's also birding and culture. And I believe my country, Portugal, it's a wonderful destination for a multitude of facets besides the birding, which is pretty awesome. So, Julie, if you agree, I will start the presentation now.
Please do.
Okay. So, as you well know, the map of Europe, Portugal is a small country in the southwest corner of Europe here. And actually, if we look to this map and consider North Africa here, Central Europe here, and North Europe here, you can see obviously that we are located in a migratory route. And that makes, as you well know, a big difference from the birding perspective. So many birds typically, of course, in spring, March, April, come from Africa after crossing the Sahara Desert, which is a big challenge for all these avifauna that cross it. And if they are raptors, they typically cross in straits like the Gibraltar Strait here, the Messina Strait here, the Bosphorus Strait here, but typically the passerines just fly and reach the Iberian Peninsula, and many go further north. Exactly the opposite happens in fall, when the birds go again, migrate to Africa, and they also pass the Iberian Peninsula. So my key message about this map, it's all about the advantage of the localization of the Iberian Peninsula in a migratory corridor. Another aspect that is very unique. So as you well know, we share the Iberian Peninsula with our larger neighbor, Spain. And as a peninsula, it's surrounded by water all the sides, as you know. And even the only link with the mainland Europe, France in this case, as you well know, is characterized by a mountain range quite high, the Pyrenees, which create effect of insulation. So over the millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years, there was that phenomenon of insulation, which from the biological point of view, explain why we have in Portugal and Spain so many freshwater fish that are endemic, amphibians, reptiles that are endemic, some mammals like the Iberian lynx, and even birds. And all those birds that are endemic from the Iberian Peninsula, you can see in Portugal, and by the way, specifically in this tour that we are discussing in spring. So the second, so we spoke already about migration in the localization on a migratory route. And now I would like to call your attention for the insulation of being a peninsula and kind of blocked, even for some birds over the evolution of millions of years. of the effect of the Pyrenees, which create this insulation and several endemic species. The third factor that is quite unique for Portugal, and I will say up to a certain point Spain, which is related with birding, it's that if we compare Portugal with Germany, France, um, even Italy, England, you see that we still have habitats that are quite unspoiled. So our agriculture is not, let's say, is not as intense as in other European countries, and that makes a big difference, and that explains why we still have birds like sandgrouse, bustards, very special birds in Portugal. So three factors: migration, insulation, and still unspoiled habitats, despite many threats, of course, but despite very well preserved habitats in several places. Well, as you know, Portugal is a small country. It's basically, imagine a rectangle with 500 miles by about 100 miles. And especially interesting is this southern half of the country from the birding perspective. Why? Because this is where we have the best wetlands here near Lisbon. This is where we have the only steppe area for the birds I was just mentioning some minute ago, like bustards. So the steppe birds here in the south, here to the south of this town, Beja. We also have a beautiful and spectacular area for rock-loving birds. So this is escarpments and crags associated with this river, the Guadiana River. And all over this region, we have the beautiful stands of cork oak and olm oak woodland, which are very good from the biological and the birding perspective, because it's slow growing trees that allowed that Mediterranean vegetation that attracts some insects, and insects attract some warblers. And so generally speaking, the southern half of the country is more interesting than the northern half of the country. Not mentioning that here, this tip here, the southwest tip, Sagres, is can be absolutely spectacular during the migratory periods, because, for instance, many raptors come in October, September, October, November, down the coast and got stuck in this tip before they realized that they need to go east because they cannot cross the Mediterranean. It's 250 miles. It's a lot for these soaring birds. But anyway, in spring, this is also a fascinating area because many passerines just arrive and got lost and got to this tip. It's really a magic place. We call it Sagres, the peninsula of Sagres, that tip in the southwest tip of Portugal. So in this trip, we visit some of the best wetlands in Portugal, the Tagus Estuary and the Southwest Estuary nature reserves, which are very, very close to Lisbon. We visit the steppe area that I was referring before, that is called the Castro Verde Plains, and we also visit the Guadiana Valley Natural Park. Actually, we stay in a hotel more or less here, which is facing the river that I was just describing. And we also visit in the Algarve. The Algarve is this province in the south of Portugal. Um, Several wetlands, salt pans, and some mountains, which can be also excellent, not mentioning the tip that I just described, which can be, as I mentioned, very good for birding. But the main message I would like to 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 let you know, to tell you, it's that you don't need lengthy travel in this country. to jump from a flamingo habitat to a great bustard habitat. That's really something special we have, because you land in Lisbon and you explore these wetlands for 3 days, and then in just less than 90 minutes, you are seeing bustards and sand grouse and vultures and eagles in a completely different region. Then in 45 minutes, after staying here 3 or 4 nights, you reach the Algarve, where you are going to stay another 2 or 3 nights, and then you return to Lisbon in 2.5 hours. This is very um, convenient, because no need of lengthy travel means more time to bird, to visit historical buildings, to to appreciate the food, the wine. It's really something that we believe it's a big advantage, for instance, compared with Spain. So imagine yourselves just landing in Lisbon. The airport actually is quite close to the city, and literally after you arrive to the airport, in 20 minutes you can have this perspective from the other side after crossing the Vasco da Gama bridge, that bridge that you can see, and you start to see um, wading birds, for instance, like these greater flamingos, which population is quite numerous in the Tagus estuary all year round. Lisbon has just nearby the Tagus Estuary Nature Reserve. So this is a board of the reserve. This is quite large. The city of Lisbon is here. So the Vasco da Gama bridge I was telling you is this one. We just need 20 minutes to appreciate all the flamingos here and many other birds, because the Tagus estuary is a mosaic of different habitats like open water, mud flats, reed beds, salt pans, rice fields. So many habitats associated, of course, related with the fact that this is mainly a wetland, um, where you are going to find species like greater flamingos, Eurasian spoonbills. I'm just giving some examples. Quaco heron, which is a scarce species in Europe, and we typically see a few individuals in the Tagus estuary, very close to Lisbon. A very handsome duck that is called red-crested pochard. This is a drake. And a wonderful selection of shorebirds, we call waders, like Eurasian oyster catchers, pied avocets. The Tagus estuary is the most important wetland in West Europe for wintering and passage, which is the case in April, of pied avocets, black-tailed godwits, bar-tailed godwits. For the shorebirds enthusiasts, this is a nice picture, because you can see here a common ringed plover, a little stint, a dunlin, and the curlew sandpiper. So several species that you don't see in North America except dunlin, although different subspecies or different races. This is a typical picture in April in breeding plumage, dunlins and knots. Ruff, another beautiful wader. This is the dominant gull that you can see all over in Lisbon. It's called yellow-legged gull. Mediterranean gull. Our Portuguese coast is the most important coast for wintering Mediterranean gull, and in April we still see a few. All that region of especially pasture, but also rice fields, is very rich in birds like barn owl. But you know, the Tagus Estuary Nature Reserve is not only about wetlands. So it holds some beautiful stands of cork oak woodland, which, like I was describing, it's a very biodiverse habitat. And this is where you are going to see completely different birds like black-winged kite, booted eagle, the first endemic species of the Iberian Peninsula, the Iberian magpie, a very beautiful bird, Sardinian warbler, Dartford warbler. I'm just giving some examples. Spotless starling, which is a starling that only exists in North Africa, Portugal, Spain, and a few islands in the Mediterranean. So it's a very restricted distribution. Birds like crested tit, pallid swift all over Lisbon and surround. And after exploring the Tagus estuary and the Sado estuary for 3 days, like I was describing before, in just 90 minutes, you can change completely the landscape. Actually, it's less than 90 minutes, but with a few stops, because we see always something on the road, let's say 90 minutes, you start to see completely different habitats. And this is the steppe-like grassland in the Alentejo. So this is when we are driving, let's say, southeast from Lisbon. And this is very pretty in this time of the year, April, because the flowers are full blooming. And this is where you are going to see displaying in April birds like the majestic great bustard, which is one of the heaviest flying birds on earth. Other birds like little bustard, which is a bird that unfortunately is suffering a huge decline all over the world. Black-bellied sandgrouse, also a very special bird. The second um, endemic species in my presentation, the Spanish or Iberian imperial eagle. This is a raptor that you can only see in Portugal or Spain. This is a young bird, a juvenile, actually. You can see by the white pale trailing edge. And this is an adult in a very typical fashion of folded tail. So they are very dark when they are adults, with the white shoulders and the beautiful blonde nape. Montagu's harrier, also a bird associated with these steppe grasslands. Little owl, birds like Eurasian stone curlew, a spectacular bird. European roller, and in April they already arrive from Africa. This is one of the migratory birds, but these ones stay in the Iberian Peninsula. The vast majority do not go further north. Calandro lark, which is one of the largest larks in the planet. But this Alentejo is not only about the steppe grassland. You also have very beautiful stands of Olmo woodland, where you are going to find different birds like the red-legged partridge. The third endemic species, the Iberian green woodpecker, so only in Portugal and Spain, and this region this tour includes is very good to see Iberian green woodpecker. Iberian grey shrike. It's not completely endemic of the Iberian Peninsula because there is a small population in France, in South France, close to the famous Camargue, but it's a very restricted distribution. The Spanish sparrow, and all these staying in a fantastic town. Every time they repair a pipe, they find either Phoenician, Roman, or Moorish archaeological remains. This is a magic, in my opinion. I like it very much. Staying in this little hotel facing the river Guadiana that you can see here. And from your balcony, you can see birds like crag martin, red rump swallow, sometimes vultures, sometimes eagles. It's really a very special place. And of course, during this tour, we visit these archaeological remains near the castle, which are absolutely spectacular. And this is a region very rich of birds like white stork, the lesser kestrel, another uh, small raptor that unfortunately, small falcon, is facing a big decline all over the world. Some areas of this river, this is the Guadiana River, with crags and escarpments, which are very good to find birds like the black stork, the Eurasian griffon vulture, the black cinereous vulture. This is a bird with about the same size of California condor, so 3 meters wingspan, so about 9 feet. It's a huge bird. It's absolutely spectacular. Birds like Bonelli's eagle, which is a beautiful, very agile eagle. Eurasian eagle owl, which is one of the largest owls in the world. Eurasian crag martin that I just mentioned before, red-rumped swallow I also mentioned. It's easy to see from the balcony of that hotel. This very handsome black-eared wheatear, blue rock thrush, and rock bunting, to give you some examples of birds that you will see in this second leg of the trip. So combining steppe with escarpments and crags, we get a great combination of habitats and birds. So after that, in just 45 minutes, 50 minutes, let's say, you reach the Atlantic southern coast of Portugal, which many people think is the Mediterranean. Technically is not, because we are to the west of Gibraltar. But anyway, it's very influenced by the Mediterranean climate, where we are going to see and visit some salt pans for endangered and relatively restricted um, localized gulls like Odwin's gulls, slender-billed gull, which is a very pretty gull with this pinkish tone exactly in April before they are breeding. Birds like blue throat, which is a very beautiful bird associated with salt marshes in this time of the year still. Spectacled warbler, melodious warbler. Another, it's not complete, it's not an endemic from the Iberian Peninsula, but we will call it a breeding endemic, because this bird, the Iberian chiefchaff, basically only breeds in the Iberian Peninsula, but they winter south of the Sahara, so in Africa. So it's technically, it's not a full endemic, but I would say a breeding endemic. In the Algarve, we also have beautiful freshwater lakes, excellent for western swampan, little bittern that reminds very much your least bittern. Our only kingfisher in Europe, as you probably know, the common kingfisher that has these spectacular colors. Birds like red-necked niger, the famous Eurasian hoopoe, which is probably actually it's the logo of our company. It's it's probably the bird that, in my experience, North American birders like most to see. We see it basically every day of the tour, but it's always a big excitement in the bus every time we see it, and that's great. And I can't understand why. It's a spectacular bird, of course. The European bee eaters, look at these colors. They are fantastic. They arrive on the first week of April. So during this trip, they will be already in Portugal, busy preparing the nests. European sirens. And this is you remember when I was trying to describe the southwest tip of Portugal, and I mentioned Sagres, which is a small village, and this is the peninsula of Sagres. This is really a spectacular place to see migratory birds, like I said before, and also seabirds like the Corys shearwater and the endangered Balearic shearwater, which is a bird that you can only see basically in Portugal and Spain. They breed in the Mediterranean, in some Spanish islands, but they do what we call molting migration. They circle the coast of Portugal and they go to the Biscay Bay for molting and then they return. So we normally see them passing in Portuguese waters, despite they do not breathe in Portuguese territory. So all this birding together with the other, in my opinion, fascinating facets, including for the ones that would like to stay for a couple of days more in Lisbon, visit this historical city. You can see here the main square of Lisbon facing a river. We don't see the river, but the river is on the right side of the picture. It's an interesting characteristic in Portugal. The main squares of every town are always facing a river or the sea, because that reflects the nature of the trading nature of the Portuguese from very old times. Unlike the Spaniards, in which you see that the main squares are always right in the center of the cities or the towns, and even Madrid is exactly in the center of the Iberian Peninsula. But anyway, I was saying that Lisbon is a vibrant city with lots of things to see. This is the Jeronyms Monastery, which is a imponent building built in 1500 to celebrate the discoveries, the Portuguese discoveries. We visit on the way from the Lisbon area to the Alentejo. We visit a cromlech with about 8,000 years, which is very interesting. It's called Almendres cromlech. This is really a fascinating place and actually quite interesting also for birding. We visit and we stay in towns like this. In Mertula, this town that I just showed the picture, we visit, like I said before, some archaeological remains, which are fascinating. And well, kind of to resume my presentation, just to remind you that why Portugal in spring? Well, because we are in a migratory route, because we have some unique birds because of the insulation and because of the relatively well preserved habitats. We are a small country with a nice concentration of different habitats, especially true in the south. So no need of lengthy travel to visit spectacular preserves, staying in just 3 regions. So we don't stay in Lisbon, by the way. We stay in the other side of the estuary in a beautiful town, very well preserved, that is called Alcochete. Uh, it's um, it's a town, and the hotel we use is facing Lisbon and the estuary. So sometimes we see flamingos from the balcony. Um, then in the second leg of the trip here, we stay in Mertlo, which is that town that I just showed a couple of pictures. And then in the Algarve, we stay in Tavira, which is also a fascinating town. And then we return to Lisbon. No need of lengthy travel and in a very relaxed pace with visits to historical places and sites and appreciating the landscapes. We still see about 180 species. So in a nutshell, why southern Portugal in spring? Because it's located in a very special bioregion within the European continent. It's the Iberian Peninsula, a great diversity of habitats and birds in a relatively small area. I just said about 180 species at a relaxed pace, and you are coming in the peak of diversity. A few endemic species. Of course, we are not Colombia, or islands that have in many cases, as you know, a large number of endemic species, but we have a few, and overall it's the whole thing. It's not only the birding, it's the beautiful countryside. We have excellent infrastructure in Portugal. The motorways, for instance, are very good and easy. Fascinating history, lovely food, great wine, and of course, a guaranteed warm welcome. And this is always something that I want to call your attention. There is this Global Peace Index, which is an interesting index about the odds you have to be assaulted, to have a strike and be stuck in an airport. Well, all these kind of things, and we rank typically in the first 7 places. We are now number 7, but quite recently we were number 4, 3. The countries that are above us are countries like Iceland, Norway. Um, well, I don't remember the others, but are some countries, Austria, for instance, that are well known to be very, let's say, peaceful. So, if you come, I suggest these field guides for birds, for mammals, for butterflies, for amphibians and reptiles. So besides the birds, we see a few mammals and we see butterflies and amphibians. And uh, basically, this is what I would like to tell you. And of course, with a warm invitation to visit Portugal, because I believe it's really a great birding destination. Thank you. Is there any question?
Thank you so much. That was lovely. It brought back really nice memories of my time there earlier this year. There are a number of questions. There's a few people who have asked about the temperature in April. What's the weather like? What should they expect? Are they getting a
Okay.
springtime trip, a cold trip, a wet trip?
So in April, I would say in Fahrenheit that you should expect temperatures between 60 and 80, which is excellent, I think. Uh, 80 is my 26. So yes, about about that range of temperatures. So quite mild and comfortable. Rain is possible, but normally nothing terrible or nothing several days. Uh, it's possible to have a few showers still in April, but overall is a great time to come. Honestly, it is. Um, for you to understand, I always recommend also fall, and of course our winter is quite mild. This is very very cold days for Portuguese standards, because we are with like 14 centigrades maximum. 14 centigrades, it's ridiculous for you from the northern states at least. It's like 50 or something Fahrenheit. So generally speaking, the weather is very nice, and April is one of the best times to come. Yeah, definitely. Don't come in June, July, and August. That's too hot. And of course, some areas are packed with tourism near the coasts, and that's definitely to avoid. Late June, July, and August, don't come.
I can confirm that. I have been in June and it's hot. Um, can you tell us a little bit about the cultural sites and experiences that people will have on this trip?
Sure. So I'm trying to remember in this program, we visit the town of Évora, which is a World Heritage, precisely on the day that we are transferred from from the Alcochete near Lisbon to Mértola. It's a visit of about half, I would say, a morning. Évora is a very well preserved little city. We visit several monuments and one museum at least, and a quite spectacular chapel that is the Bones Chapel. I think Julie have been. It's something that we never forget. But it's really worthwhile because it was a town that was very important in medieval times. So let's say in the century 12, 13, 14, 16, it was really an important town for Portugal. So there are beautiful places, sites to visit there. In Märtula, we also visit the town and the main archaeological remains. As I was telling you, there are layers of from the Phoenicians' time, Roman, and Moorish. It's also a fascinating area to find, and we visit also at least one of the museums. We include also in this trip because we believe it's also related with culture, is also culture actually, a wine tasting, I believe on the second day. um, and of course for the people that would like to extend their their visit, they can visit Lisbon, because it's really I believe worthwhile to do it.
Great. João, am I correct that you helped establish a birding trail through Portugal? Am I right about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
I'm trying.
yeah, well, when we were there, we stopped at many sites that had the signs that you had up, and they were lovely. And it was really fun to not only see the signs when we were out birding to know what we could be looking for in the locations, but also to know that you'd had such a hand in getting those at all these really, to me, felt like places that were off the beaten path. So that was really exciting. How long have
Yeah,
you been working on that project?
for the last, let's say, 5 years, maybe 5 years. So it's the idea is to that everybody has a good experience. The ones that are guided are in, if they are in good hands, they should have a good experience. The ones that are not guided, sometimes they are frustrated and we find them in the road looking for the great bastards and they don't find the great bastards. So this trail is thinking specifically on people that actually is not guided and can follow the trail. That was the main objective of the trail. Yeah.
Well, it was really neat to see that and know that you were part of it. So
Thank
this
you.
maybe kind of stems to Monica's question. Monica is wondering if the trip is appropriate for a beginner birder. Monica, I personally can tell you that I'm not a super strong birder, and it felt very approachable. The species list wasn't very long. And so it didn't take a lot of work to start to remember the birds that you were seeing and hearing. But you can probably talk to that more, João.
Yeah, this is not a destination like countries like Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, in which you get confused with 400 species in 2 weeks, which is great. I wish in a way, but this is all about the whole experience. I think is completely appropriate for a beginner because you see still 180 species, but many are very charismatic and related with the the history, the like the white stork. It's a bird that despite from Asia and Europe and Africa, I think all North America know the hoopoe, other birds like the great bustard. So it's really a selection of very charismatic birds. You are not going to see 73 species of warblers, no, but you are going to see probably 10, 15, which are quite interesting and beautiful birds. Yeah, the
Alan
famous common nightingale.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, just because of the skylark that inspired poets, and so the famous common nightingale is singing everywhere in many places of Portugal. Everywhere, I mean, in the Myrtle area, for instance, and that's a bird that is very charismatic because of the song, like the skylark. But sorry, Julie, I interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's okay. Alan wants to know if the pelagic trip is still included.
Yes, yes, it is. The pelagic trip, to be honest, is even more spectacular in during fall because the number of seabirds is higher. But in spring, on the other way around, we see besides several seabirds, we have more chances of sea mammals and dolphins and even whales, and that's also a very interesting facet of these pelagic trips because in my experience the vast majority of birders also like to see whales and other fascinating animals.
Maureen wants to.
Yes, so sorry, just to say the
Okay.
pelagic is on
Mhm.
unless the sea the conditions of the sea are not safe or something, and that happens, I would say, in spring, 1 in 5, so we should be okay.
Maureen wants to know if we do this trip every year, also in the fall. Maureen, yes, we do. It's every spring and every fall. Typically in October in the fall and April in the spring. Um, João, Mark wants to know if most Portuguese people speak English as well.
Yes, the answer is yes. The young people all speak English. You can still find in remote areas like Mertula a few waiters, for instance, that do not speak English as we would like, of course. But one thing I can guarantee, they do a genuine effort and they try because that's our nature. We we try to adapt to the circumstances, and of course tourism is very important for Portugal. Actually, we were the country in Europe with the largest growth in 2025, and that was because of tourism, nothing else. Mainly because of tourism, let's say. So yes, generally speaking, you can be astonished with the people speaking English, and compared with Spain is a huge difference.
So Catherine wants to know how many birders go on this trip. What is the typical length of a birding day? How many hours of birding? And what's the use of the local guides? Catherine, I can speak to the number of people we'll have on this trip. We won't have more than typically 10, sometimes 11 if, the last room is sold to a couple. So everybody fits in a big bus, and then you'll have your local guide. It'll be Antonio for the spring trip. And then you'll have your driver. And then if it's a full group, Laura, who's on here somewhere, Laura Cana from Naturalist Journeys will join you as a host as well. So, Laura, maybe you can wave to us. There's Laura. She'll join you. And then, Joao, you can tell us more about the typical length of a birding day, how many hours you're out and about, if there's any downtime,
Sure, sure.
things like that.
This is a destination in which you don't need to go to the field to wake at 4:30 and go to the field at 5:30. You don't need that. We typically have breakfast around 7, 7:30, and we go to the field. We give time for the people to have breakfast, and uh, we start our day birding typically around, I would say, 8. So we go to a couple of places by car. The walking distances are relatively small and very easy, and we always try to adapt and do our best to the participants' possible limitations. We stop for lunch in a restaurant or in a cafe, or in some situations in the hotel, and we return to the field let's say, I would say on average, let's say between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. So it's not too intense. Again, it's a relatively relaxed pace. I just came from Pantanal in Brazil, was more intense, I swear to you, way more intense. And it's we have dinner around 7:30. It's difficult to have dinner in Portugal before 7:30. But again, if it would be Spain, it would be 8 or 8:30. So we have dinner and then we go to the hotel. So it's a quite relaxed pace, I would say.
And there is a lot of nice downtime when we get back from the field in the day to get a shower and get cleaned up and rest a little bit before dinner, which I think most of our
That,
clients really appreciate.
that's very important. Yes.
Mark is wondering how many meals a day are provided by Naturalist Journeys. It's from dinner on day one all the way to breakfast at the end of the trip. So every meal is included. Essentially, the only thing that's not included are um, your international flights, any laundry services, any gifts you might want to buy, but all meals are included. Lois, yes, we will offer it every year, spring and fall. And then Mark also says that his wife and he would like to stay for a few days before or after, and he wonders if you can recommend some places that would be
Sure.
good to extend their time. We know that lots of people love to do that in Europe. It's good fun.
Sure. Sure. We are here to help. So we work closely with the naturalist journeys. You just say what would you like, and we try to recommend. And if you want, if you wish, so we can even do the reservations and head to the naturalist journeys bill. I mean, from for reservations of hotels, of course.
Yeah. And we had some people come in early and just do a few days in Lisbon, mostly to acclimate and get unjet lagged. We had some people stay later and go on to Porto on their own. Some people who went back down to the Algarve, which was good fun. So there's a lot of opportunities. And again, like you said, Joao, there's not a lot of travel time, so you can get easily to other places in the country to extend your time.
Right.
Um, Jesse, our sales manager, hi Jesse, wants to know what the differences are between the spring and the fall tours, other than what you mentioned for the pelagics.
Okay. So I would say the weather normally is quite similar. Spring offers some advantages. Bird singing, breeding plumage, and that's quite spectacular. I would say spring. It's the best time of the year to go to that Alentejo region. You remember when I mentioned that we stay in that town, Mértola, with the steppe area and the escarpments and the crags. Spring is definitely the best time there. For the wetlands, fall actually has some advantages, and for seabirds, definitely is a lot of advantages. And there is also a phenomenon which is quite interesting, which is many passerines that migrate from Africa in spring to Europe tend to have a more easterly route. And when they came down in fall, they tend to have a more westerly route. So there are a few species in fall that are way easier to see in fall than in spring. But they are not in breeding plumage. And in some of those flycatchers, that I can tell you makes a big difference. It's really a big difference. Spring is like spring in North America, as you well know. It's the birds singing, the breeding plumage, like I was describing, the display. For instance, to see great bustards displaying is something very unique. You cannot see that in fall, but you can see in spring. It's each season has some advantages. Again, except late June, July, August. Don't come then. I don't know if I answered the.
You did.
Okay.
Steve wants to know if we visit Sagres, Sagres.
Yes, yes, that's the peninsula that is in the southwest tip of Portugal. We have a day, a full day, that we visit Sagres because even in spring is a very special place, and we have the pelagic there. That's the place where we have the pelagic.
Um, Les wants to know where they can get more information on the birding trail that you helped establish.
Ah, uh, well, actually, it's um it's the municipalities of Mertula. The website I can send you later, Julie, the website, they have access there, and because we managed to expand the trail to three councils, but my objective is to extend, well, ideally to the whole country. But I would be happy if it will be at least the Alentejo, because again, it's a very special region. But I can send you the website, yes.
That'd be great. Les, we can get that to you for sure. Um, there's a question about if there's a single rate or do you have to have a roommate? There's absolutely a single rate. I'm not sure how many singles we can take on this tour, but it's typically a fair amount, and there's always the option for a single supplement, so you don't have to have a roommate. Um, Mark wants to know how we would categorize the food in general. Examples, spicy beef, chicken, pork, large or small portions. How about desserts? I can tell you it's wonderful. It's not spicy. It's rich, but there's, every meal starts with, and I'm not going to say all of this right, so you can follow me up, but every meal starts with little nibbles on the table of nuts and cheese and things like that. And then, oh my gosh, I don't know. The food is just, you can get loads of options, chicken, beef, pork, all of it, vegetarian. We had people who were gluten-free. And it was just lovely. You will not lose weight on this tour.
The fish and seafood are some of the things I think Portugal is best because we have very relatively cold waters, and that is, it seems, an important factor for the quality of the fish and the seafood. Yeah,
Um,
especially in the Algarve, the seafood and the fish is, and in Alcochete near Lisbon also. In
yeah,
Alentejo is more about meat, but there are always options for vegans, vegetarians, or people that like prefers fish, for instance.
yeah. And the desserts were all delicious. I always go
Ah,
on to
yeah.
a trip saying I'm only going to eat one dessert a day, but then I eat it at lunch and at dinner and when we stop for an espresso because you don't want to miss out, right? Um, and
We
there's
we
always
also
gorgeous coffee
sorry,
shops and pastries available each day. So,
and we also have good vegetables and salads. That's
mhm.
important to say,
Yes, yes.
and quite fresh because especially in some areas they are really local. So
Mhm.
it's the lettuce has a beautiful color, these kind of things. Yeah, I think we can say that we, generally speaking, the food is one of the highlights of the trip.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, and then Mark also wants to know if he should bring a tripod or do the guides usually bring tripods? You should not need a scope. Uh, your guide Antonio will have a scope. Laura will probably bring a scope. If you want your own scope, you are absolutely welcome to bring a scope, but there will definitely be scopes.
Right.
Mhm. Um, Somebody, they don't have a name, said that they traveled to the Azores recently and the food and wine were both very good. And then Catherine wants to know luggage recommendations or limitations, especially if you're bringing a camera and a lens.
There are no major limitations. We never had, over the last 20 years, a problem with someone that brought a luggage that we couldn't handle. No, it's not a problem.
Okay, well, that's all the questions for now. Joelle, thank you so much. Um,
Oh, you are very welcome.
Everyone who's still here, um, if you have more questions, you can email our sales team. They're at travel@naturalistjourneys.com. Um, and we can help answer questions there. We can help sign you up for the tour. Travel to Europe sounds really nice this winter. Well, sitting in the middle of winter, planning to go to Portugal in the middle of spring sounds lovely. But if you have any more questions, email us. And if you happen to be, or you're going to be in San Diego, am I right, Joelle?
Yes,
Yeah.
and
So,
Space Coast too.
yeah, if you're going to be at the Space Coast Festival or the San Diego Festival, say hello. Um, and we hope to see you in the spring. Thank you all so much. Thank
Okay,
you, Joelle.
thank you so much.
All right.
Okay, and
Take
I
care,
hope to
everyone.
welcome some of you at least here in Portugal, in Lisbon, Portugal. Thank you.
Thank you.